Welcome to the Education Marketing Leader podcast with Chris Rapozo. If you're looking to dive into the latest industry insights, draw inspiration from education success stories, or just want to sharpen your marketing skills, you're in the right place. Here, we bring you a diverse range of voices from experts and leaders in the field, offering you a unique blend of professional development and practical strategies. Whether you want to understand your audience better, stay updated with the latest tech trends in marketing, or expand your professional network, we've got you covered. So while you're driving on your morning commute or winding down after a busy day, let's explore the dynamic world of education marketing together.
Welcome everybody again to the Education Marketing Leader Book Club. Lots of regulars here, but for I asked Gary if I should Dr. Daines. He said, say Gary. So we'll go with that. But my default's always like, go with Doctor, For those who don't know me, which is Gary, I'm a marketer, a podcaster, a storyteller, a runner, a husband, and a father. And I currently work full-time for a marketing agency called StayMates out of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. We do all sorts of content marketing, website redesign, that sort of stuff. And the group here is half is agency partners and half is on-campus marketers. Here's my little daughter. We had Halloween activities going on this weekend, last Friday. So my wife had me dress up as Peter Pan and she was Tinkerbell. So this is Kate, 4 years old, Tinkerbell, and my wife made me do the Peter Pan. So
that's cute.
I did look like the Green Giant though. But anyways, book of the month is How to Be a Small College by Gary Daines. So thank you, Jeff Ebbing. Jeff Ebbing actually made me aware of this book. He saw it on a LinkedIn post and he sent it to me a couple of months ago. And I was like, hey, let's jump on it. Because we always want to be on the pulse of things and get the most recently released books and then help the author is with the promotion there, so that it's always going to get a couple more copies sold that way. Today's author is, like I said, Dr. Gary Daines. He's a founder of Back Porch Consulting. He's interim president. He's a consultant. He's an author now. He's a problem solver and a conceptual thinker. But Gary, tell us a little bit more about you and your journey.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thanks for letting me join you all. It's great to be with you. Once upon a time, I was a history professor. I became an inadvertent administrator in the way that sometimes happens to people. My pathway was through service learning and civic engagement. I was teaching service learning courses, and then somebody said, well, maybe you could help other people teach service learning courses. And before I knew it, I was the associate provost. I had a fancy title, but I was really the associate provost for new stuff at Westminster College in Salt Lake City, Utah. At that small school, as at many small schools, you sometimes end up with a job you didn't expect to have. So I became the vice president for enrollment management there by showing up for work one day and the president saying, congratulations, you're the vice president for enrollment management. Thought I wanted to get back in the academic side of the house, so I took a provost position in Eastern North Carolina at a little school called Barton College. Eastern North Carolina is sort of the former tobacco and cotton part of the state, economically disadvantaged. And so a lot of the concepts in how to be a small college were shaped at that institution as we tried to serve the actual students that we had. During that time, I started consulting work. And since that time, I've been doing both consulting work through Back Porch Consulting and interim work. And as Chris said, I'm the interim president at Salem Academy and College, a girls' high school and women's college in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Chris, I was once upon a time a runner. Now I'm a former runner because I have bad knees and hips. And we have 4 adult daughters. My youngest is 26. So I have been Peter Pan. I'm now just like an old guy with a gray beard. Nice to be with you all.
Awesome. Awesome to have you. Awesome to have you. All right. So let's do a little bit of an intro for everybody else to be here. I have Rafi Dersimonian first on the list here.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rafi Dersimonian. I'm Vice President, Chief Strategy Officer at ERI. We're a digital strategy design development firm. I'm headquartered out of Portland, Maine. We also have an office in Worcester, Massachusetts. I'll just share briefly that I'm so glad that this book was put on my radar, and thank you, Chris, and everyone else for making today happen. I am also a father. I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I wish I had a photo to share with you of us all dressed up as the characters from Annie. I was Daddy Warbucks. My 4-year-old was Annie, and my 2-year-old was Sandy the dog. So
Wow.
Awesome. Awesome. Very good. Good to have you back, Rafi. It's always good to see you, my friend. Jill?
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jill Whitaker. I'm the Director of Web Services at Southern Utah University. So when Gary mentioned Westminster, I'm like, hey, I know that college. I'm also a runner. Who knew we had so many runners in higher ed? I'm a mother. I have a 13-year-old daughter, and I have worked in higher ed for nearly 25 years full time. I also worked in higher ed the whole time I was going to college, and my mother has worked in higher ed, so I've grown up on college campuses. So it's kind of the industry that I know the most. I can't even understand my husband's life in private industry. I'm sitting there, what are you talking about? All those things you do. What? And you don't have like formal committees and policies for like every breath that happens. So higher ed's in my blood.
Awesome. Very good. We can tell because you're always here, you're always learning, and really appreciate you being a part of the book club again this month. Troy?
Thank you.
Troy Singer with Ring Digital. I am a digital marketing consultant. It's hard for me to say in this group, but I am also a runner, but I don't say that around Chris because as I've told him, I do have 60-year-old hips and knees. So my pacing isn't as strong as it used to be, but I do enjoy running, and I plan to run with Chris when we meet with one another he gets together groups, although I'll wait for him to do the first 3/4 and then I'll join him for the last bit of the run. He's a very fast runner.
Good to have you. Go ahead and plug your podcast too.
I am the co-host of the Higher Ed Marketer, and that is with Bart Kaler, who is also a author that was featured here by Christopher. And that's how I got to meet Chris, because he was a listener to the podcast, and we met through the podcast.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, a lot of I thought about Bart's Mission Fit, Chasing Mission Fit book, and then when I read the small college about mission and getting the right fit students on campus.
Very similar.
Jeff Ebbing.
Jeff Ebbing, Director of Marketing and Communications at Southeastern Community College in Iowa. I have had the pleasure / misery of running with Chris, to be honest. You guys, firsthand knowledge. I can tell you that I've never seen Chris's face, only his back. So just so you guys are aware of that too. But same thing. I've enjoyed connecting with everybody through the book club. I know a lot of folks on this call, whether it's through this book club or through other things that we've done. So happy to be here. Happy to have found Gary's book and read it and shared it with Chris.
Awesome. Yep. Really appreciate you sharing that with me. Everybody, if you come across any books that you'd like to read, just send it to me and we'll put them on the schedule. Pablo?
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Chris. Hi, everybody. My name is Pablo Mora. I'm head of communication at the Vice Presidency of Research and Development at the University of Santiago here in Chile. I enjoy running and cycling like you. So thank you very much for this new session.
Awesome. Good to see you again. Always a pleasure having you. Denise?
I'm Denise Nunley. I'm Director of Marketing here at Arizona Christian University in Glendale, Arizona. I used to be a runner. I do not do that anymore. I've had 2 knee surgeries, so I've traded in for pickleball and golf, but that's those are the things I like to do. But yeah, no, it's this is actually a very timely book for us as a university. Probably going to share this one with our leadership because I think there's some really good principles in it that we are a very small college. I think our enrollment right now this year was like right around 1,600 total. So,
all right, very good. Good to have you back, Denise. Thanks so much for being here. And Patrick.
Hey everyone, Patrick Anderson. I'm the Enterprise Account Executive at a organization called Cheppers. We help higher education institutions leverage the cloud and Drupal as a CMS. I'm based in Chicago, Illinois, where it's beautiful here today. And I do run, but I'm thinking about trading it in for cycling. So open to hearing people's suggestions on that. Nice to meet you all.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning into the show today. I hope you enjoyed so far.
Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast, but we're just overwhelmed by the sheer amount of work that goes into it? I get it. After producing over 100 episodes for the Education Marketing Leader, there's a lot of time that goes into this, time that most of us simply don't have. And that's where the Education Marketing Leader podcast production service comes into play. Me and my team will take care of the heavy lifting, from scripting, strategy, editing to promoting. All you have to do is show up, record your episode, share your expertise, connect with your audience, and build your personal brand. So if you've been sitting on a podcast idea, today is the time to act. Reach out to me via DM on LinkedIn and we'll get you started. And now back to the episode. Awesome. Well, good to have you back, Patrick. Really great to have you back. So thanks to everybody. So let's open up the discussion. So, I mean, when I started reading it, I thought the growth or die mentality it's what stuck to me, because for me, coming to America, I lived here 20 years. I grew up in Germany, and everything's like kind of smaller, and on scale. And when we came here, everything's a little bit bigger, right? And especially when it came to my career and wherever it is, right? So you got a small house, you get a raise, you upgrade, you keep upgrading, right? And it's the same with schools that I learned in this book, that, hey, we have a small college, but we really want to be like that R1 school right there. And we have to just grow, grow, grow. Otherwise, we're a failure. And just this mind shift that I had reading this book was really liberating for me, that, big is not always better. So, Gary, I really appreciate you putting this out there, especially from your perspective and from your experience, not just theoretically, but practically as well, to encouraging people that work in smaller colleges that this is a specific place for a specific type of student, and that not everybody may fit in there, and that you don't need to chase everybody out there, but find the right people that are going to thrive in there and that are going to be successful. So really appreciate you sharing that with us in that book.
Just want to chime in and say that unfettered growth in on almost anything is not realistic. I still think of Southern Utah University as a small regional university. I attended SUU in the 90s when I got my bachelor's degree. I think we had around 5,000 students at the time, and we just barely released our third week reports for this year, and we're at about 15,800. I mean, we've had a lot of growth over the years. But also, I mean, there are people that are freaking out. It's like, oh no, we haven't had as high of increases the past couple of years. But we've all known about the demographic enrollment cliff coming. But I mean, it feels like everybody has to have that in mind, that there has to be a cap at some point. The one thing that I kind of always equate it back to is when I got an Apple Watch and they have the little rings on it. And each week, it's like, hey, you met all of the goals on your Apple Watch. Should we increase it? I'm like, okay. And then the next week, you met all the goals. Should we increase it? And I'm like, okay. And then it kept going. And after a while, it's like, wait a minute, are you just going to keep increasing every single week no matter what? That doesn't seem wise. There's got to be a point where you just stop increasing, right? And it kind of equates back to what we're doing. I mean, we can't have every single university growing and increasing all the time, because even without this enrollment demographic cliff, there would be a cap. I mean, there's not unlimited supply of people to fill all those spots. But we're also having fewer people. And so I think that schools have to figure out ways to measure their success that's not solely on how many students we have enrolled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think you have to be careful too, because those of us as marketers or admissions recruiting folks, whoever we have here, if we went to our cabinet and said, let's not aim for growth, I think we would be shown the door very quickly. So I think it's important to figure out how to have that conversation meaningfully, because again, growth is assumed, it's expected. Maybe it's because we're coming from the for-profit business side of the world, which is still also, I guess, to a large degree, still at a certain point unsustainable. But how do we have that conversation internally to right size? We're in the process right now of just starting a new SEM plan. And I saw the first draft, extremely rough draft. I shouldn't be, super critical, but everything is like, there's 75 things: increase, goal, this, develop, grow, increase. There's no way in hell we can do that stuff. I mean, some of it, yes, but we got to prioritize and we got to, right size and look at that. So I'm really interested in, when I look through this book, what does that look like from a practical perspective? That doesn't sound like, well, marketing doesn't want to grow, They just want to do how do I advocate for what I know is right, but not sound like I'm underselling what my job should be?
Yeah, and I just note, I didn't mean to suggest that bigger was by definition bad. Simply two things, right? One, you might have growth, but it should be growth as a result of ever greater strength at the things that you are distinctly called to do. So that's one piece of it. And so, Jeff, your community college has a certain catchment area, it serves certain population. And you better be just increasingly great at serving those students in that place. So we do see growth coming out of schools that are like really intensely focused on their mission. So I think that's one piece. The second piece, though, is that we, Jill, as you were saying, we live at a time where it's likely that some schools will continue to grow, others will disappear. Some others will probably survive, but at a smaller size than they are currently. And I think that's particularly true for independent colleges. And so it's an important discipline for those schools to understand how they might be successful in the long run with a smaller enrollment than they had 10 years ago. Some of that's about focus, some of it's about just operational wisdom, some of it's about being clear about what you do and what you don't do.
I think
After you, please.
I think Daines kind of hit on where this book would be very effective. And again, I don't work on a campus, but going through it, and then also just thinking we do live in the USA where bigger is better, and we're capitalistic by nature. However, for leadership to feel good and to get clarity of this is who we are and what makes us who we are, and then how do we lean into that and amplify it. I think when she said she was going to share it with her leadership, I think that's the best way, kind of helping the psyche and to also to set direction for smaller schools, especially when we all have in the back of our mind, bigger is better because of our society. I mean, that's just when we come out of the womb, we see that all the time.
Yeah, Troy, that was also one of my favorite aspects of this book, was just that gut check of asking the question, what's the purpose of growth? And I think for me, your chapter 4 around serving community, I thought was one of my favorite, just because I think that is one of the biggest contributions that higher ed makes, is bettering the communities that they're in, making equipping students to be global citizens and contributing members of their community. And that's more about impact versus, metrics. And while it's more difficult to measure, I just appreciated the question. And for me, reading this, I was thinking about it through the lens of an agency owner, about a lot of the same principles I thought held true around, what's the objectives of growing the agency. It's about impact. So thank you for asking that question. And I thought there was a lot of really interesting themes and questions that you asked throughout the book.
And I think, you can tell in the book that serving a particular community is really important to me. And it grew, as I described, out of that experience being at Barton College in Eastern North Carolina, where we would occasionally have a student who would go on to work at like Goldman Sachs in New York City, and we'd love to tell that student's story. But we were less forthcoming about the student who became a State Farm agent in Kenly, North Carolina, even though that student, by measured impact, might have actually done more good in that community than our student who went to Goldman. And the other thing that was happening in this part of the state was that an assumption that was often held is that it was better to go away to college. And if you went away, even if you just went to Raleigh, North Carolina, you were less likely to come back. And so on the one hand, people should pursue the places that their gifts take them. On the other hand, if we do have a commitment to serve certain communities, we need to measure our impact by how well we serve those communities.
I like that. Honestly,
totally.
Gary, that's a really good point. Like even in our situation, we have to really lean into faith, at our institution, and really knowing. It's been interesting in this last like couple of weeks. We've determined that a lot of our students are coming from homeschool situations, and so finding ways to serve that community and tell those stories and kind of why they have an affinity to come here. I mean, I think I know that, but I don't know that always leadership thinks about that because it's not the glamorous situation, I guess, like you said. So
Hi, Gary. Thank you. Thank you very much for this
Hi.
book. I would like to say that I really enjoy this book for a very particular and personal reason. I would like to say that it couldn't be a better time to read this book than today, than this time. Because at the university where I work, we experienced in the last month a very big crisis, institutional crisis during all October. And at the heart of this crisis are many of the insight that we can find in the book, especially trust and growth. Um, in summary, in the first week of September, the students took over the facilities and the buildings of the university because they were protesting because against the authorities of the university. It was a very big strike against the authorities. And they demand two things. One of them is that the president of the university spent a lot of money in hire legal advisor for the university to resolve some legal problem that had the university. So and the president didn't communicate this decision to the community, and the students have been demanding for many years improved facilities, classrooms, many facilities of the university. But there is no money for that. There is money for a legal advisor, And the second demand was because the university decided in last September to buy a small educational center to incorporate new areas to the university. So the object is to get bigger and bigger as university, and the students disagree with this decision. So they protest against the authority, took over the facilities, and we spent more than 1 month in that situation. So it was very interesting because I could see all the things that you write in the book, but in real time, to be honest, I have a lot of takeaways of this situation connecting with your book, but I can highlight two takeaways for me: the importance of trust and community over growth, because one of the book's main lessons is not to prioritize growth over the existing community, and the importance of leadership. We spent a lot of time trying to solve this problem, but we didn't have a very good leadership to solve in a better way. Finally, the students go to home but not because they agree with the authority. It's because the police enter to the university and get the students out. So obviously the conflict is still alive. So we don't know what's going to happen with this situation. So as you can see, I could see in real time many of the things that you write in your book.
Pablo, thanks for sharing that. I'm sorry to hear about the disruption at your university. One of the things I've noted, and I'm sort of in the middle of this right now as an interim president, is that institutions are devoting an increasingly large portion of their revenue to the compensation of a relatively small number of people. And on the one hand, I get it, right? It's hard to hire a vice president for enrollment. It's hard to hire a great chief marketing officer. You find a president that you want, schools will spend for that. And on the other hand, there's a basic principle, I think, of good organizational management, which is you align your resources with your customers. And in a college setting, that means making sure that your students are well served by the vast majority of the resources. So I say that, Pablo, just to say I empathize with your challenges, and that question about how you spend your money is a really pressing one in higher education all over the world.
Yes.
That reminds me of the section that you wrote about more and more amenities are being offered at universities and colleges that aren't necessarily utilized or wanted by the students. And this is where the bloat happens and where the waste in resources happens as well. And I can tell what Pablo just said, that okay, you have to pay on, you probably have to spend on legal advice. That's one thing, but then on buildings, for example, like what you said, if you build it, they don't necessarily come. And same with Pablo's issue there. They kept on building facilities and buildings, not listening to the actual students that are there, focusing on the ones that they think they want, instead of making sure that the current community is happy with what they have to offer. So yeah, I can totally see that would resonate with Pablo and his situation. So I hope they resolve it, Pablo. I mean, you're going to have to do some crisis communication, hopefully plug a couple of chapters to your leadership, and then call Gary in if you need help.
Hablo español.
Very good.
So, Patrick, you got any takeaways?
Yeah, I think I'll add on to explore the third question you put there through a couple lenses. I also have a personal thing that I liked about the book too, but I think on my how I think my wife, I'll go ahead from my wife, what she experienced during college, and she went to a small, relatively small college in downtown Chicago here that really prioritized really prioritized private partnerships, and a lot of their faculty were active or actively working. So a lot of the curriculum and a lot of the projects were around what is actually going on in the world that you're trying to work in, right? It's active exploration of and actually the work you're going to do once you get there. So she really worked well with her counselor, and her counselor was able to leverage the private partnerships they had to, I think by junior year, she was working part-time in a PR and marketing firm doing the work. And she did that for the last 2 years. And it really just exponentially, it really set her off on a growth path that she wouldn't have had otherwise. And that is on the students too, right? Take advantage of those opportunities, right? To be yeah, I actually do, I really love this work. How can I do that while I'm in school? And that just, it set her, I know from her perspective, it set her apart. And now she works at Meta, and it's she's not too far out of college, but that's really what set her apart. And then on a personal note, I really liked how you talked about building the faculty of attention. I think I have a daughter who's 3, so I think about that in different ways. But to your point about a small college, you can't do everything. You have to have the focus, and So I really kind of like that note on a personal level is talking about building that faculty of attention in students and in colleges. So
Patrick, thanks for that. And I'll just note that, in the United States, there's been for maybe 3 or 4 generations this assumption that somehow you go to college to explore yourself, to figure out what pathway you want to follow. But that's that's anomalous in the history of higher education, at least in the United States. For most of the time that there have been schools, and for most schools, it's been about training people to do good work in the world, whether that's in a religious vocational sense or a job vocational sense. And so I'm actually really happy to see a return to the connection between learning and work, because I think that's deeply rooted, at least in the American experience. And it's, Patrick, to your point, it's absolutely a way that a small college can outpace a large university, because you can have personal relationships that land students in really good spots for them. And that's a way that you can stand up against the University of Illinois at Chicago if you're going to a small independent college in Chicago.
That's kind of what I wanted to jump in and mention both what Patrick and Gary have said here. I think that we kind of got into this weird thought pattern where people were looking at higher ed like we were a bunch of 5th century philosophers, contemplating the why of a butterfly or something weird like that. And even, though there may be some of that, I think for the most part, people have always been working toward a career and getting a job to better their life. And so I think that it's really cool, even though it feels subversive sometimes almost when you're bringing that work end goal into the education, and it's like, I think that's why there's a lot of disillusionment right now, is that people are like, oh, college has gotten bloated and you can get a good job without it. You can go do, on the job learning. You can learn things from the internet without having to do a formal education. And I think that there is still value, obviously, because I work in higher ed, but I think that we need to get back to that route where it's like we are training people to go and do skills at a higher level, but it's still to work. It's still to have a job and to have a career and get fulfillment from that. But it's not just about finding who you are and fulfillment. And now I've been, twirling in a meadow while I think about philosophies. Philosophy's great, by the way, but
yeah, I was gonna say, Jill, I think there's a time and place for that, and that's obviously part of curriculums everywhere is the how to think portion, right? It's like we're teaching not people what to think, but how to think and how to think critically. So yeah, that's still important as part of a curriculum. So
Yeah, one of the things that surprises me about curricula in the United States, and it's a little bit off track for the conversation, is that the general education curriculum spends very little time thinking about work, right? Like work is one of the most important things that all human beings do, but you rarely see a course that's about the meaning of work, or how to find meaning in work, or how to discern your vocation as it has to do with work. And it strikes me that that's the place, Patrick, to your point, where the philosophy side and the what do I do post-graduation side can come together in a really thoughtful way in the curriculum.
I like the excellence over status portion as well, because I went to 2 different schools. I went to a community college, which was excellent, but it didn't have the status that I was looking for. So I'm transferred to the University of Florida while I lived in Florida, and that had the status of it. But looking back on my experience, both taught me what I needed to know about getting into the field that I wanted to get into, which was communications and marketing. But the mindset, for years I would not say that for years I wouldn't reveal that I graduated from a community college. It was just one of those things you're like, oh, well, I went there, yes, but I've graduated from Florida. So I kept saying I graduated from Florida until I felt like, I guess, I grew in confidence of who I was in myself and in my career, and also working closely with community college marketers with the works of NCMPR. That's one of those organizations that actually Jeff was a president of, and working with the marketers and just knowing the good work that comes out of it. I slowly over the years came out of my shell there and thought, hey, you know what, this is excellence what they're offering at a price for the community, that makes it accessible for everybody to go to school. And, it's something that should be communicated as well. Like you mentioned, the Goldman Sachs graduate, we like to tell those stories, but that seems so far away and so unattainable, like a Tim Tebow story that Florida likes to tell all the time. But where's the guy from down the road in Ocala that went to the University of Florida? I'll never hear about that person, right? Who makes a huge difference in their community. So, yeah, I like that what you make sure that, hey, you want to be excellent in what you do to attract the right students there. So, and I guess that's going to be something when we're talking about the demographic enrollment cliff as well. When there's fewer students that come around, how do we communicate that not all students just flock to the R1 institutions and get into heavy or into major debt, but actually come out with the ROI that they're looking for at the end.
Chris, I think you all who are enrollment marketers have an incredibly difficult job because our tendency is to say most institutions describe themselves in roughly similar ways. We talk about you come, you're well known. We develop a sense of community. We tout the US News and World Report rankings. And so that makes it really hard if you're trying to differentiate yourself. If you're a school like Denise's, right? Like you want to differentiate yourself as a deeply committed Christian university. You've got to come up not just with different language, but with the sort of stories that communicate that honestly and directly to the students that you're trying to serve. And that's very hard work. So please accept my thanks to all of you who do that work on a day-to-day basis. It's essential and really, really hard. And higher ed leaders don't help because we just use the same like 8 words in different sentence structures all the time. So thanks for your work.
I have a question for you, Gary, just like in the sense, like that you're in a small college and as a president, how have you employed kind of the things that you've put together in this book in your college? Like what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so we have deepened our commitment to being a women's college, first of all. And for a long time, women's colleges, many of them went coeducational, but Salem has decided that it's committed to being a women's college, and it has a curricular focus at the college level and also at the high school level. And so, to answer your question initially, Denise, we've committed to our mission and tried to clarify it as much as possible. And then we're in the midst of trying to line up our resources with those things. It's actually, I think, easier to do on the academic side, where you can say, this is our mission, these are the academic programs that we have that lead to our mission, than on the co-curricular side, where our tendency is, to want to have, 100 clubs and all sorts of activities. And that, I think, is a real opportunity for greater efficiency and focus, is to understand what a lived experience would be for your students that aligns with the mission. And then also to have the courage to say, we're not good at this thing, or that falls outside of our areas of expertise. So if you want to be part of like whatever the barbecue club, there's a great barbecue restaurant down the road, spend some time there instead of encouraging the institution to develop a barbecue club, which was a true club at one of the schools I worked at. So it's those sorts of focus, and then being willing not just to say this is what we do, but being willing to say these are the things that we won't do, and be honest about those with your students and faculty and staff. So that's the sort of work that we're trying to do at Salem right now.
No, that's helpful, and you had pretty good buy-in, I'm sure, from faculty on that side, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think the folks who are here, and this is probably true at most small colleges, very few people end up at a small college by mistake.
Right.
And so once somebody comes and stays, they're committed to that place. So at least in my experience, they're often more willing to be all in supporting institutional focus because they've committed to that particular institution.
Yeah.
Gary, I have a question for you. I highlight a sentence in the book. It said, ensure that leaders are also teachers. I would like that you can explain me a little bit more this idea, because based on my experience, I work at a public university, and in this university, all the leaders, authorities are teacher. Actually, there is no option to be leader if you are not teacher, you know? So, and this is the main complaints of many people in the university, because usually teachers are very good in many fields. I don't know, they are expert in cells, in black holes, you know. And the problem is that these people, at least in my case, in my experience, these people don't know anything about management, about setting goals, about work with people, with teams. And this is a very big problem for us as public university, because it's very difficult to change this. So you cannot bring very good people in management for the university. So you have to put in this spot also just teachers. So it's not a good experience for us. So I would like that you can explain me why leaders, it's good that leaders are also teachers.
Yeah, Pablo, I appreciate that question. And you're right that outside the United States, it is commonly a model that faculty are elected to be the rector of the university. And it is also the case that the skills required to lead a university are not always the skills that an excellent faculty member has. So I want to acknowledge those things. And then I would say that I mean two things by ensuring that your leaders are teachers. One of them is that it's often the case, at least in the United States, that the administrative sector of the institution and the sector that deals with student learning are really distinct. And so administrators have often come to fail to understand what it is that students need and how it is that they learn. So some real practical experience in the classroom has been an eye-opener for many of the university college leaders in the United States that I've worked with, just so they have a real sense of who their students actually are. So that's one part. But the second part is that leaders need to think of themselves as teachers in everything that they do. I mean, when you're giving a state of the university speech, people are learning from you, and you need to think about the pedagogy and the learning outcomes associated with that. And to do that is to help ensure that the institution as a whole is learning, and that people understand that the main purpose of the institution is student learning in order to help them develop into the sort of human beings that we need them to be. It is not running as a university, right? Like if our students don't learn, we've failed regardless of how much money we have in the bank. And in the United States, I worry that sometimes administrators have forgotten that lesson unless they interact with students in a learning environment frequently.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
We've got about 10 more minutes for questions for Gary. So it's not that we have a college president on the call every day. So be sure to ask your questions, especially if you work on campus.
Well, all right, I'll ask, because this is a good question. All of us work for a president, so help us understand some of the things where we could serve you better. You talk about some of these in the book, aligning with the president's goals and the institutional and the strategic. Help us understand how we can do our jobs better, because obviously we have a motive to do things in a certain way that we feel is right professionally to go, but they don't always align. Help us have our cake and eat it too, basically.
Yeah, well, Jeff, you alluded to something at the beginning when you were making your first remarks. A healthy institution is one where people who work there can honestly share their perspectives about the viability of some sort of a plan. And it's challenging to do that, but I think it is particularly important for people in leadership roles, but who aren't the president, to be honest about what is achievable both in terms of growth, but also in terms of efficiency and operations, where the institution is out of alignment with its mission or where it could be better aligned. So I think that's one thing. The second thing that you hear all the time is bring problems and solutions. And I have found that to be tremendously helpful when people with whom I work say, right now we have a challenge with our student information system. We're going to have to replace it. It's going to cost us an extra $250,000 a year. I don't know where an extra $250,000 a year are coming from. So when my CFO says, like, here's our recommendation, and these are some ways that we can fund it, I appreciate that very much, even if those aren't actually ways that, we can't actually find the money there. So I think that is tremendously important as well. And the third thing is to make sure to build strong and healthy relationships with your peers across the institution. One of the ways that institutions lose focus is when different sectors of the institution have different philosophies or different understandings of mission. So let me just give an example. Like an institution might say, we are committed to student success, but that means something different in the classroom than it does in student support, than it does in enrollment and marketing, than it does for institutional effectiveness. And so because the institution has like 4 different definitions of student success, it's not pulling in the same direction. That's only something that can get resolved when colleagues work with each other horizontally across the institution to be sure that the philosophies and the practices support each other. The institutions that I consult with that have strong collegial relationship amongst the leadership team, regardless of who the president are the institutions that are most adaptable and most sustainable over time. So for me, those would be 3 things, Jeff.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
How could we better serve you? So you talked about some ideas for us. How can we better serve you?
Serve me?
Yeah. How can we better serve our presidents? Presidents have frustrations. You get up, you can't sleep at night on certain things, $250,000.
Yeah.
What can we do to help you out?
Yeah, I'm sorry to be so flummoxed at this question, Jeff. Perhaps it indicates a little bit about kind of the work that I'm doing right now. One of the things that I have found particularly helpful being an interim president, coming in sort of from the outside at a school, is I understand the school at an abstract level. I understand its budget, but I don't have the stories that indicate what is the true nature of the institution, like the wisdom and expertise of that place. And so I need those desperately. And I think that's probably true in most institutions of higher education. So I have found that one of the most useful things that people can do in your role is to pass along instances, individual stories or data that suggest the mission of the institution in action. Whether that's, the person who becomes a real estate agent in a local town and helps the town to flourish, or a particular faculty member whose curriculum design is powerful, or somebody who's a supporter in the community who says, like, this is the thing that makes me support your institution. Having those real concrete examples that flow up to the president is just tremendously helpful. Presidents are often in kind of an echo chamber, right? We only talk to the people that we talk with. Many of them are legislators or major donors, and we can lose sight of the true nature of the institution. And if it is going to be the case that an institution will flourish by being true to what its actual nature is, presidents need to know what that nature is from the people closer to the front lines, like you all, who can have real concrete examples of what it is. That would be my number one thing.
Thank you.
I have a question I usually ask. Sorry, Patrick, you go first. I'll go last.
Oh, sure, Chris?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, appreciate it. Gary, in your time in higher ed, how have you handled situations where maybe the college has technical debt? Because you talk a lot about in the book, I think it's chapter 3, just like, right, the solution, right, the technology, and how like universities are kind of like peer pressured, I guess, to like adopt technologies that may help. And it's like that may not always align with the college, or right, you then need someone to run that technology, right? How have you handled in your experience colleges that maybe have too much technical debt, and how do you downsize?
Yeah, Patrick, you probably know this more deeply than I do, but when I'm doing work on operational efficiency with schools around technology, the first thing I want is an inventory of all of the software that the institution has. It's nearly always the case that there is software duplication across the institution, right? Whether that's in marketing areas or whether it's databases. So that's thing one. You've got to find efficiency that way. Thing two is to identify which pieces of software don't talk to each other, because usually where handwork takes place, it's because the technology systems aren't set up the right way. The third thing that I look for, especially at small schools, is to ensure that technology helps simple things be simple. So like every student should know how to pay their bill, and they should be able to click on a link and pay their bill, and they should know how much to pay. That's a simple thing. Oftentimes technology is complicated or our interfaces are poor, and so it makes it difficult for students to do that. And then finally, and here I'm speaking a little bit out of my head because I'm not an expert, but it strikes me that this is beginning to be a moment where judicious use of AI can help respond to the technology issues that small schools have by filling in gaps that would be very expensive to fill in other sorts of ways. And those gaps will be different in different places. So there's another women's college just down the road from where I am in Winston-Salem called Bennett College. It's even smaller than Salem. Their president is using AI to improve student advising for course selection because they have so few faculty that the faculty aren't able to do advising well. So remove duplication, make sure the systems talk to each other, choose the highest value piece of software, and then I think fill in with other sorts of support. AI may be one. A second one, which I'm exploring in some other institutions, is just partnerships with other schools with shared back-end services. A lot of technology systems work better at scale. And if you're a school of 500, you have a system that can serve 5,000. You've got to find ways to fill out the system in order to have the resources to make it work well.
It's a great point, and like kind of a little bit of a shameless plug, but like that's part of what we do. And like the AI space is like helping universities like leverage those knowledge bases to be able to serve their community better. And that's where your point, right? AI helping to fill in the gaps is huge, especially for smaller colleges. So
yeah,
thanks for that, Gary. Yeah.
I think there's a huge market opportunity for technology firms to get into the business and serve small colleges. Most of the most dominant technology firms work at scale. They expect, just think about the enrollment space. Whether you're EAB or RNL, the expectation is that an institution is going to spend several $100,000 a year to work with you. I think there's a real market opportunity for startups to get in the technology space for small colleges and serve them better than the big players do right now.
Very good. Very good.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
Last question to close us out. Gary, the book, what inspired you to write it and why was now a good time?
Yeah. What inspired me to write it was spending a lot of time both working for small colleges and consulting with small colleges and seeing that even though they got a lot of criticism or like people were saying like they're going to die, that the work that was taking place at those small schools is high quality, incredibly valuable for the lives of the young people who go to school there and for their families, and that those stories needed to be told, right? We shouldn't be embarrassed to work at a school with 750 students in rural Iowa. That work is essential for the well-being of the people who go to school there and for those communities. And why now was because I think we are at a time where paradoxically the narrative about small schools is that they're all dying or they're all going to shrink or that the future is horrible. And I see all sorts of glimmers of hope across the United States, both with existing small institutions and with startup small institutions. And I always like to be the guy that's sort of a contrarian. Like when people say, you should like that band, I like some other band. And so while people are saying like the future for small schools in the United States is difficult, I think there are real reasons for hope. And we should pay attention to those and we should trumpet them from the ramparts. So that's what the book was about.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. Thanks so much for being here. One more thing here. Next month, our next book is going to be Go Giver, a little story about the powerful business ideas of giving first. It's just good for the holiday season, I thought. It's not marketing, higher ed marketing related, but it's a really good business book. I read it. It's easy to read. Released in 2007. Bob Berg is going to join us. He's super busy. I asked him, hey, can you join us? He said, yes, but I only give you 30 minutes. So I said, okay, let's do the last 30 minutes when we get to the Q&A. So Go Giver is a business parable about Joe, an ambitious man who learns from mentor Pindar and 5 go-givers that success comes from giving value and putting others first. So it's a good one. I love it. Next meeting, December 4th, right before we get into the Christmas holidays. Hope everybody can join us. I'll be sure to promote it. If you have any questions after the fact, just reach out to me via DM. Gary, again, really appreciate you being a part of this.
Thanks for welcoming me. It's great to be with you all.
Yep. Take care, everybody. See you next.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap for this episode, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to Education Marketing Leader Podcast this week. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to share it with your friends and your network. And if you ever thought about starting your own podcast, now that you listen to one and you got inspired, reach out to me via DM. We'd love to help you launch your own. We'll take care of everything for you, the scripting, the strategy, the editing, the distribution. All you have to do is show up, connect with your audience, and build your personal brand. So if you're ready for it, let's chat. And for everybody else, we'll see you next time at the Education Marketing Leader Podcast. Take care, friends.